Hi guys, this is a little bit of an update on a video I did recently. In fact, this is the one I'm talking about. I encountered problems with this MSI motherboard, actually that's displayed in the background there. Some people actually got confused, I think, in the comments, and they thought I was dealing just with the MSI motherboard, but I actually replaced that one because their BIOS was no good and they weren't getting any better. I was having to turn on the power and turn it off again, sometimes up to 8 times before it would boot, and this was unacceptable, so I replaced it with the ASUS motherboard, which is what we're looking at here. This is the BIOS screen, of course. Now, I was having problems with this as well. It was taking like 3 minutes to boot, and apparently there is a problem somewhere with the AMD processors and motherboards. I do not know how the dysfunction actually, who has actually the cause of it. It could be AMD, and what actually happens is that I got this message from ASUS, and they said, based on the feedback you provided, in order to ensure stability, high frequency memory, blah 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 blah. If the memory frequency is greater than 5200, ASUS will perform memory training every time it starts and will prolong the boot time. Yeah, like to 3 minutes. And up to 5200, it doesn't do that. So after some experimentation, I found out that if you got EXPO turned on, like I have over here, you see DDR5 6000, which is actually what the memory module is, and the memory module that I actually bought is on the list on the ASUS website as recommended. So that is what I have. It's Corsair. I got 2 sticks in there of 32 gigabytes. You have to use 2 sticks because if you use more than 2, if you start filling up the other 2 sockets, it cannot handle more than 5200 speed, even if you set it higher, and it actually becomes slower. So there's a limitation there with the PCIe lanes or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. But so that's what I did. 64 gigabytes is enough for my use, and that is what I've got. And I can actually enable the EXPO, and we'll have a look at the settings in a minute. The settings I've made means I can actually boot now in about 40 seconds, around about that time, which is acceptable, I guess. It's still, if I got EXPO turned on, it still will not do a restart. So if I'm installing Windows or some other software or something that needs to do lots of restarts during the install cycle, I simply turn this EXPO thing off, set it to disabled. It'll then go to 4800 megahertz by default. Although I have experimented, I can actually set it up to 5200. And to be honest, I'm not even sure how much difference that makes. I haven't run any benchmarks compared to 6000, but in any case, as I said, if I turn EXPO on, it sets it up correctly for this 6000 speed memory, and it does seem to boot in a reasonable time, I guess, and it works just fine under Windows. So what have I done? Well, I found that there is a setting here under AI Tweaker, and the MSI motherboard also has a similar setting, but in its case it didn't seem to make that much difference, and I still had this problem with it not wanting to boot. So, but over here, if you go to DRAM timing control, and if you got a different motherboard, you'll probably find that it has a very similar setting. These settings started to appear just a few years ago, with the motherboard manufacturers realizing that there was a problem with the booting, and it's called memory context restore. So the motherboard actually tries to remember what the memory speed was, and it tries to restore that and not do the retraining, as it says in the bottom here. When enabled, DRAM retraining is avoided when possible and the post latency is minimized. When you turn that on this particular motherboard, it actually turns on this power down enable as well. If you highlight that, there's no information. I don't know exactly what that does, but obviously the two are related, and they automatically, when you switch one on, the other one comes on. So I've left it at that. Secondly, as you see from the, we also got to be trying Linux, and in order to do that, I found that I had problems. First of all, none of the Linux, even the ISOs on a flash drive and so on, would not run. So I've under boot and under secure boot. Now normally on other motherboards you might have a setting there that says turn secure boot off, which is what you want for Linux. This is not available on this ASUS motherboard. It only has standard and custom. However, I found that setting it to other OS, and it used to have Windows UEFI mode in there, but setting it to other OS and custom, and it used to be standard, I think, if I remember correctly, will allow Linux to boot, and Windows still boots just fine as well. So these are the two settings I had to change, sorry. And another thing, when I was trying to then boot Linux, I was greeted with a screen that looked like that. Kernel panic, not syncing, timer doesn't work, to interrupt, remapped IO, APIC, some information there, which and then it would hang. That's it, boom. So it seems that the Linux kernel has a few limitations in it. I mean, you would hope that it would recognize that it could actually reprogram this APIC and make it work maybe, but I don't know, maybe I don't understand that properly. But in any case, there is a under advanced, let me turn that off here. So under advanced, and we are talking about AMD CBS, whatever that means. And CPU common options, I found it has a local APIC mode setting, and this thing used to be set to auto, and that didn't work. There I will get that message. Compatibility didn't work, but I now have it set to xAPIC. I do not know what that means. It doesn't actually tell you. And that other mode there, X2 APIC, I haven't even tried, because it started working as soon as I selected xAPIC. But I'm still getting a lot of error conditions when Linux boots and so on, but it seems to ignore most of those and still works or something. If you contact ASUS and you ask them about Linux, they'll say, we don't support Linux, you're on your own. So that is something that I hadn't thought of when I bought this motherboard. Maybe I should have done some research to find out whether there are motherboards that actually will work with Linux very well. But in any case, this is what I have. Let's talk about Windows again. With Windows, I have been getting upset. I used to be a software engineer, and of course I was writing Windows software using Visual Studio, C# for your enterprise applications and what have you, some web apps and all sorts of stuff. So I had to use Windows for that, but now that I'm retired, I don't need that anymore, and I have been eyeing Linux, and quite frankly, it is not quite there yet for me, but maybe it works well enough and things will improve in the future. I'm not sure, but I can try starting it to use it for some things. So what has been upsetting me with with Windows is that more and more Microsoft has become a bully, and they will take control of your system and not allow you to, even if you're an administrator or a knowledgeable person, to make adjustments to it. Like for instance, this thing I've been dealing with here, you see this anti-malware stuff that is circled over there. You can turn off Windows Defender, either to the registry or some settings in control panel or what have you, but this thing always keeps running, and it takes quite a few resources when it runs. If you have a small older PC, I have a few little older mini PCs running connected to some TVs that I'm using just for streaming, YouTube and what have you. And when that anti-malware stuff starts to run, it will use a significant amount of resources, and it can use up to 80% or so of the CPU power and everything. And at that stage, when it is running, it's just sluggish, doesn't respond well, it doesn't stream well, it gets stuttering and all sorts of errors. So I need to get rid of that. So I've already done that on my little mini PCs. I was able to actually load up, I got Manjaro Linux running on them, and that's running just fine, and all I'm doing is running Brave browser and streaming, and no problems at all. But on my main machine here, this is you know, a more powerful machine, and it's got later hardware and stuff like that. I've been having lots of problems. As I said, I've had to make changes in the BIOS already to make it even boot, and so we'll be looking at that. But why are we having these problems with Windows, and why am I upset with them, is that, as you know, Windows actually has said, okay, you've got to have that TPM module going, and if your computer doesn't have it, it doesn't work, although some people have found workarounds around it, because in actual fact there is no actual need for Windows to use TPM 2 modules. And also they said they're no longer supporting, you know, CPUs that are more than a few years old. And guess what? For enterprise versions of the software, they have a version of Windows 11 over here that is actually Windows 11 IoT Enterprise LTSC, and this is aimed at as an average user, you can't use it because it's aimed at corporations that have computers that don't follow those rules. And you can get there's a Windows 10 version as well, but the Windows 11 IoT Enterprise LTSC, it'll be supported for up to 10 years. And if you look at the minimum system requirements, what do you see? You only need 1 gigahertz of memory with 2 cores, 2 gigabytes of memory minimum, 16 gigabytes, and you know, the requirements are very minimal, which shows you that Windows can easily handle this, because this is actually a full-fledged Windows 11. And if you look at what processors, you can go right down to an Atom, a Pentium, and a Celeron. So Microsoft is just being a bully, and I don't know if there's some corruption there or something, that they, after October, they want you to spend money with them and buy new PCs or something. I don't know, but that is one of the reasons why I want to get out of the Windows world. So for me to run Linux and to get completely out of Windows, I would have to have the following features. I need OBS-Studio, which indeed I'm using right now in order to record this video. And I do have one application that I'm fond of, which is VSDC, which is a video editor. It is not available on Linux. It's a relatively small English company, I think, that develops it. And I asked them about Linux, and they said, "Oh, maybe in the future we'll make it work with Wine, which is a Windows um, core emulator thing that runs under Linux and so on." But I won't hold my breath because I've seen no evidence that they're even working on it. But I've already tried it on another machine in VirtualBox, which is a virtual machine emulator. I've put installed Windows in it, and Windows 10, and put VSDC on there, and it seems to run okay. So that would be a solution for some of the Windows only software that you might have, and this is the only one application that I have, so I'll put that in there. I like Brave Browser. That has to be available in the software installer, the repo manager, whatever you call it under Linux. I need Visual Studio Code, and I need the official version. And there are a few things out there. Some of the repos have a Visual Studio Code which has been modified or something by somebody, and they don't support the things like PlatformIO, which I use in order to develop and compile Arduino software for my microcontrollers and things. And it is actually used as an extension in Visual Studio Code. And as I said, there's some of them do not support that, so that wouldn't be any good. And I like using FreeOffice instead of LibreOffice, which most of the distros come with by default. So that I would look for that. And I must have a GUI to do everything. I don't want to refer to the console unless I'm doing something really low level. I want to be able to install software and to maintain the system without having to dive into the console, which for some Linux users is heresy because they think you shouldn't need a GUI at all. I think it's like a religion to them. Arch people specifically. And the software installer and package manager also has to support Flatpaks by default, which is a more recent way that software is installed over different distros, which is I think is kind of nice. And some of them do not support Flatpaks unless you go to the console and set up things from there. As I said, that's not acceptable, so that is reject as far as the distro is concerned. Must support at least my 2 monitors, which is I've got a 4K monitor, a bigger one. It's actually a TV, but I'm using it as a monitor. And I have a monitor which is 1920 by 1200, which is slightly bigger than the standard HD size, and I need to be able to use that, and I've already worked out that I need Wayland support in order to scale these things properly. The Xorg old-fashioned software with the Nouveau driver that is used for NVIDIA by default will not work with that properly. So, but some of them seem to have a bit of they fudged it a little bit, and it does still seem to work. And I found that there's this Mageia Linux Manjaro, I think, also, and but we're going to be trying MX Linux in a minute, which because that brings us to the next thing. It is really desirable for a Linux installation to be able to either or both support RPM or the deb packages. Now what these are is there is Red Hat software. I think RPM probably stands for Red Hat Package Manager or something like that. They've been around forever, but they are now only dealing with enterprises. They are no longer have free versions of their software. Some people have spun off some of their stuff. I think it's called Fedora, but I haven't had much luck with that. But because they are in enterprise, 9 out of 10 times, so they are popular. So most software manufacturers, including Visual Studio Code and FreeOffice and VirtualBox and so on, they all have it available as RPM or deb packages. Deb packages are related to Debian, but Debian itself is not a great distro as far as I'm concerned. It's very conservative, and their kernels and everything tend to be behind the times, but they are used as a basis by Ubuntu, and Ubuntu is very popular, and that's why deb packages are usually supported if anyone does software and puts it for download. So it is desirable, or must be able to load one or two of those to be compatible with everything as far as I'm concerned. And as far as the GUI is concerned, I have tried them all, and I only like Cinnamon and KDE. Don't like GNOME, don't like xFCE. So that is what we're looking for. So I have downloaded and tried all of these. There is a catchy OS, elementary OS, Fedora KDE, Fedora Workstation, Kubuntu, Linux Mint, Linux Mint Debian Edition, LMDE, Mageia 9, Manjaro KDE, MX Linux 23.5. The ASUS version does not boot at all on my system, even with the tweaks I made to the BIOS. It just sits there. I don't know what the deal there is. AHS is supposed to be an enhanced version with extra later drivers and kernels. Something there's not working. Neon, KDE Neon, OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, Rocky 9.5. Now Rocky 9.5 I tried because that is actually the only thing that's supported by DaVinci, the video editor, and it is awful. It is sort of a spin-off of some older Linux or something that used to be there. I can't remember what the basis of it is, but that's not acceptable either. Solus Budgie. So the only ones so far that I found workable have been, as I said, that Mageia 9, but it has, it's kind of unusual. It is a used to be Mandriva, and it was developed by a company in France, which and it's not based on anything. It is unique, and it's got some interesting tools there, but it does not support, for instance, Flatpaks unless you go to the console and stuff like that. So that makes it a little bit undesirable. Although I have been able to install all the software on there that I needed, and maybe looked at again, but I prefer something else. Manjaro also I've got to work, but it is an Arch-based distribution, and unless you install a special tool to install Debian packages or something like that, it doesn't do that by default either. So today we're going to be looking at MX Linux KDE, and we will do an install of that. Alright, so I will go back to the easy mode here and go to the boot menu, and we are going to boot from a Ventoy based flash drive, and I've got many of the Linux distros there, and we are going to go and go to MX 23.5 KDE. We're going to boot in normal mode, and we will go and tell it to go ahead. It says you can do Alt F1 to see boot process, and if you do, you'll find a whole bunch of errors, but it seems to be ignoring them. Maybe they're not important. Okay. Now I've only got one monitor turned on, the actual HP, and if you only use one monitor, it always seems to work okay. It only things go wrong when I turn on the 4K monitor, the big one. But first we will install it. So we'll say install MX Linux. Has kind of unusual installer, different from the others, but it seems to work well. Now we're just doing a test install here, and I'm going to try to set it up without using any passwords. You will see these guys are installing Linux and they're putting in some, even if they're testing stuff, just putting in these convoluted passwords. I'm lazy, I don't want to do that. If I like it, then I'll install it, or I'll change the password later on. Okay, so it's saying keyboard settings, PC, everything, that's fine. I'm going to do a regular install using the entire disk, and we are going to be wanting to put it on this one here, WD Black. It's got nothing on it. Do I need hibernation? No. So I don't want to customize the layout. It all looks just fine. Go for it. Format, you use the entire disk. Yep. It's an NVMe SSD. It's a Gen 4, so it has like, I think it's 7,500 gigabits per second or mega, whatever it is. So now it's already starting to install, which is kind of nice. Let's give it some sort of, I don't think it actually uses this, but I have a website, pay.us and pi.us. Workgroups, all looks good. We are in Boise, near Boise, Idaho. I don't need to change anything else. So just for good measure, the root password account, I'm just putting a space bar in there. A lot of the installers now insist, some of them insist you gotta have a password at least 10 characters long. I hate that. That should be up to me to decide, not them. I will turn auto login off, because when you log in, you have the option to change to Wayland and so on. We can try that out. And if you do auto login, you don't get that option. So, and I'm leaving the passwords blank on the default user account. It then says, oh, are you sure you want to do that? Yes. And I like that. This is good. If I don't want to use a password, I don't want to use a password. I don't want somebody to say to me, oh, your password's too short. It's my business, not yours. Okay. It should be relatively quick to install. Some of the other distros can take ages. Oh, it's already done. Finish. Okay, reboot. Change the boot from this guy here. Yep, it's booting. Always get those two error messages, don't know what they are for. Don't know what it was waiting for. Okay, so as you said, you can see over here, you can select Wayland or Plasma X11. And I'm going to leave it on Plasma X11 for now. And I didn't use a password, so I can just log straight in without doing anything. There's still underlying problems in this system, and I'm hoping that some ASUS has been releasing BIOS updates for this particular board almost every 2 or 3 weeks. So hope maybe there will be a BIOS at some stage that might work better with Linux. I'm not sure. I'll keep updating them and see what happens. Now there is a problem. Oh no, there it is. This MX Linux has this MX Tools, and you can also access it through this screen here, and it has an NVIDIA driver installer. So let's try that. Okay, so enter to exit, leave it at that, and we will have to reboot now. But we're going to shut down and then restart, because I know the restart won't work unless I turn that EXPO off. Now, as soon as you install the NVIDIA driver, you get a whole bunch of errors that weren't there before. For high speed stuff, maybe that is why. I'm not sure. Let's leave it on X11 for now. We will be experimenting with that. Go to Wayland, but let's have a look if it is working. Seems to be taking longer to get started now than without the video drivers. Okay. We've got a cursor. We've got, oh, finally. All right. There's that conky thing that's on the top there. So let's have a look at we want OBS-Studio. Yes, it is there, OBS-Studio. So that is available, that we need, as I said. And we can say install. Microsoft Visual Studio Code. So it's already there. That's a good thing. Now VirtualBox, is that there? Yep, it's there as well. See how it makes that easy? Some of the other distros that I have tried, VirtualBox isn't there. And then you go to the Oracle VirtualBox website, and you'll find that they got a deb and an RPM, and then you'll find, like, for instance, I think it was it on OpenSUSE or something, then it can handle RPM packages, but not that one. It rejects it, and then you have to, you just I couldn't install it. Problem detected while installing. Please inspect the console for output. Group VBOXUSERS does not exist in etc. group. Yeah, you have to add. I guess you should do that before you install it. Even you have to go to groups and create this VBOXUSERS group and assign yourself to it before it'll work. But we can still do that. All right, now yeah, see there's PlatformIO. It's available. You can install it. That's what we need. So far so good. I think I can do most of my work in Linux, but there is still some other stuff to try. Still installing. Anyway, you get the idea. All the software we needed is pretty much there. There's obviously more setups to be done. I'm just waiting for this to finish installing PlatformIO. Yes, you can reload. All right, now if I go and say log out, I should be able to say and go to Wayland. Let's have a look if that works. No, it doesn't work. It crashes out and goes back to the login. Yeah, no good. So we're stuck with Plasma. Now I'm going to turn on the 4K display. You won't be able to see that because it's just waiting for it to come on. Log in. Okay, so the 4K display came on, but unfortunately it now decided that the 4K display is the primary, so see there it is. So I'll have to highlight this one and say this is my primary. Apply. Okay, so now we got our stuff back, except that that conky thing is still on the wrong screen, but it's okay. And as I said, with the Wayland is not working on this, it is crashing. So I did have some other distros that the Wayland did kind of work. Monjaro, for instance, but it had other problems. So this thing over here, I'd like to go like that. Keep. Alright, so now if I open something, let's open a Firefox here. And if I move that to the other screen, you won't be able to see it, but you know, it's not too bad. I can actually read it. It's not as bad as some. So I guess it's sort of workable. All right. Okay, now it is working. I guess I had to do a reboot or something. Very good. Now VirtualBox is going to complain about things. I know it does. Can't enumerate USB devices. There is some. I've got some two USB ports on there that use Thunderbolt, USB 4. I think this particular Linux here is not able to understand those, but nevertheless, what we're going to do is at some stage I'll create a new virtual machine, then I overwrite that with a one that I have already got stored. All right. Oh, now FreeOffice. Let me see now. I don't believe that is available either. Oh, it is available. Good for them. This is the one I want. That makes it a lot easier. So it looks like I have all the software I need, and I have to tweak it and make some changes to set this all up properly. But it sort of looks promising, I think. Oh, and there is some updates to be applied as well. All right. Mostly LibreOffice updates, but let's put them all on. Update all. Might just make it work better. So this is the updater. It'll say over here the tasks when it's done. So I'll fast forward it. Okay, up to date. It's finished. I want Brave browser. I think that's the last thing I need to install, is it not? Oh, at least it's a bit bigger so you can see what's going on. Okay. All right, got Brave browser working. I'll have to do some more settings and stuff, but that is all good. I'll turn that one down to 100% again for my use. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you find any value in this. And I'll speak to you guys later. And maybe now that things are settled down, I got stuff working, I can do some more electronics based videos and stuff. See you guys later. Bye bye.